Hey Moussa, thank you so much for inviting me to your home.
It's great having you, Dominic.
Fantastic. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about your experience because you've been involved in many different businesses, many of them small businesses.
Yes.
And I particularly wanted to talk to you a little bit about the financial aspects. But at the moment, you're running your own YouTube business and
Correct.
Quantum Home Improvement.
Correct.
So if you're interested, check out Moussa's links down below.
Thanks, Dominic. It's funny, I wasn't always in business. I obviously started working for someone else.
Yeah.
And I find in business you have to have the hunger to be in business. Without that, most people, business can fail.
It's very true. I suppose one of the things I was interested in is, like, as someone who's running a business, what's the kind of main financial thing you've just got to keep track of?
Definitely the cash flow.
Okay.
So that's a hard thing to keep on top of.
Yes.
I have started 3 businesses,
right,
and they've all taken around about 3 years to take off.
Wow.
And so cash flow can be really difficult.
So that's interesting. So in each of the different businesses, 3 years was about the time it took to actually get to a point where you were...
I wouldn't say financial, but at least the income's coming in, more steady.
So more predictable.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So
Yeah.
if someone's starting a business, they should budget for around 3 years before they're expecting to be comfortable.
I always wanted to run my own business. I did a dressmaking course at the age of 18, finished at 20. And my father wanted me to start a business. And I always said to my dad, around the age of 30. It was really interesting that I said that. And so I wanted the experience with other companies first. And so I did that. And funny enough, I actually left school illiterate, at the age of 16. And I was unemployed for 2 years during the 82-83 recession. And so they were hard years, but I learned a lot in those years. I kept myself occupied by learning different things, panel beating, spray painting, mechanics. I had a really good friend who taught me that. But it made me hungry to start business. And so to any business, you have to have a focus, and you need to have a goal, a path. And so I learned from other people first. But what's interesting, the first business I started was a maintenance business called Moussa's Minor Maintenance.
Really?
And and it failed.
Wow.
It failed because I didn't have cash flow. I didn't have a vision. I didn't know anything about marketing.
Right.
So my sales techniques weren't very good. So
Interesting. So do you think it was a combination of things, or was there any one thing in particular?
Well, as I said, I always wanted to be in business. So that taught me what my shortfalls were.
Okay.
So to be in business, for anyone to start a business, it's really important to understand, first of all, the principles of business. Okay, and there's big principles, as you know. I've watched a lot of your videos.
Tell us.
Well, I mean, the principles, first of all, marketing. You had Mahesh, and he gave us a big run on marketing. First of all, you have to have a good idea on marketing. You need to know your market. You need to target your market. Okay, you need to know what your demographics are. So you need to know, are you aiming for the 20-year-olds, the 30-year-olds, the 40-year-olds, people with money, people without money, because sometimes your service could be through government services. So you don't have to rely so much on money from the person, but they will have aid. I've always targeted my market, and that came later in life when I worked for a company called Hunter Douglas that taught me a lot about marketing and understanding a lot more about business.
Okay. Very interesting. So what was probably the key lesson you learned from Hunter Douglas?
There were so many things.
Yeah,
there's so many things. First of all, eagerness. Okay. To understand the person. First, understand yourself. First. To be ethical in business. We used to play a lot of games. We had group gatherings and play games, and do lessons on selling and things like that, all that type of thing. And we played a game one day where a group of us were in teams of, like, I think 6 of us, and we had to keep talking to other groups, and we had to see which group was lying.
Oh, wow.
Okay, and everyone had to pretend like they were saying the truth. And I told my group, being from Hunter Douglas, I was an employee, so I said to my group, and these were customers, I said, how about if we just start off from the bat, honesty is the best policy.
Wow.
And we didn't lie at any point.
Wow.
And I think there were 6 groups of 6, something like that, I can't remember exactly, and we won.
That's fantastic.
Okay, so the life lesson there for me in business is always tell the truth. Okay, even if it's gonna harm you in business, but try not to harm yourself.
For sure. So how does that work? Like, say you're talking to a customer and they want something that's not what you're selling.
Well, first of all, you need to really have a good chat with the customer. You've got to be a good listener. Now, all of us can fail in that and can struggle with that. I mean, in our own families.
Indeed.
And so I became a really good listener.
Okay.
And you've got to understand what the person's needs are. Okay, they might think that their needs are a certain thing, but when you talk to them, especially with a lot of experience, I was in the home a lot with Hunter Douglas selling Luxaflex blinds and awnings.
Yes.
And so they would always ask for either light control, heat control, noise control.
Yes.
But they would be talking about a product that looked really beautiful.
Yep.
And really expensive sometimes.
Okay.
And then you'd ask them and say, what's the most important thing? And you'd find most of the time it was heat.
Okay.
Okay, and I know a lot about heat.
Yeah.
And Hunter Douglas did a lot of research on their products, which was the best energy deflectors.
Okay.
So I'd given the advice what I believed to be true.
Yep.
And so Hunter Douglas really were dogmatic on the point that you have to close the sale.
Right.
As most companies are.
Yes.
And my close rate on the day was really low.
Okay.
But I had one of the highest closing in the business.
Overall.
And then when I was in my own business, it got even higher. My closing rate was around 70%.
Wow.
I never sold in the home. I'd always say to the customer, because it's a large priced item, I'm happy to come back because I have to check measure anyway.
Yes.
Because I have to measure the windows.
Okay. So there you're actually listening to what the customer wants.
Yeah, you have to listen to your customer.
But also to what the customer needs, which
Yes,
is not
correct.
always the same thing.
Correct. And if you do it in a gentle way, if you facilitate the sale rather than actually try to take control of the sale,
Yeah.
so you can get over that sale and go to the next house,
Yeah.
you failed already.
Yeah.
You failed already. So in business, the most expensive thing you're going to spend on is marketing.
Yeah.
Can be, right? And so when I was in my business in Bateman's Bay, selling blinds and awnings, running my own blinds and awnings shop, we had a high competitor rate. There was a population of 14,000 people.
Yeah.
We had 14 competitors.
Wow. That's a
Now,
lot.
I did not do my homework correctly. I thought there was only 4 competitors, but unfortunately there were people coming from other towns that were quite big in Bateman's Bay.
Okay.
But in 3 years,
Yeah.
we became the best known and we won awards as the best small business in Bateman's Bay and new business.
Wow.
And we won awards with Hunter Douglas as well.
Well done.
Why? Because you give the customer what they really need, not what they want, and people then end up respecting you.
Yeah.
So instead of spending a lot of money on marketing,
Yes.
because we did TV, radio in an early stage, we also did letterbox drops.
Okay.
And no one thing works in marketing. It's a saturation of everything at the right time.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we did a letterbox drop, we would saturate at a certain time of year, like a winter sale, a summer sale, and have a sale on. You know, you need some lead pull for people to want to ring you.
Yes.
20% off, 10% off, 15% off. And so that was the lead puller.
Okay.
But then we would also have some TV at that same time.
All right.
And sometimes, I was always on radio in a country town. And John Laws, if you remember him,
Yes,
the
I
radio
do, yes,
announcer,
indeed.
would do all of our commercials on radio.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
So one of the things that many small businesses struggle with to start with is like, well, I have to start it at like a cut price rate to get the customers in.
I'm glad you said that.
So tell us a bit about your experience.
Yeah,
with that.
my experience was pretty silly actually. There was a lot of Hunter Douglas customers that, or Luxaflex, that would try to get a greater market share.
Yeah.
And everyone thinks, I'm not getting my share. Sometimes a bit of greed can come into there and you've got to watch out for that.
Yeah.
So when I started business, I just wanted to get in there and start getting customers, and I started discounting quite heavily.
Yeah.
And it crippled me
Right.
because people expected that.
Yeah.
But luckily, Bateman's Bay is a coastal town and the first port of sea for Canberra.
Oh, right.
And so that was my saving grace. So a lot of Canberrans would come to Bateman's Bay and a lot of holiday homes there, and I would, furnish their homes with, window coverings and blinds and awnings. I was really big on blinds and awnings actually because I'm from a structural background.
Okay.
And so, we gained momentum there. So once we gained momentum, I was able to drop my discounts to a more respectable level.
Okay.
But it did take about 3 years to drop my discounts from a really silly level where I was not making any money at all, just turnover,
Right. Yeah.
to then actually existing.
Yeah. So what does that do for you financially? Like in terms
It
of...
cripples you.
It cripples you, yeah.
Yeah, look, I can't remember the percentage of companies or businesses will go broke in the first 3 years.
It's very high. I mean, it's up to 80%.
Yeah, I hear 70 to 80.
Yeah.
And so they will fail because they become probably too eager, market share, they haven't got the right idea, they probably haven't got the right attitude with the customer.
Yeah.
A lot of things have to fall into place.
And also sometimes I think it's a lack of knowledge of the industry. So
Correct.
it's like, well, I just go and start a business, I don't know much about it, but
Yeah.
it should be fun. You know?
Yeah. And so what they do is damage the industry.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people out there who damage certain industries because they are just cowboys
Yeah.
or cowgirls,
Yes.
and they just go in and they just damage the business in their local area.
Yeah.
And it takes a long time to recover from that.
Yeah.
As Mahesh said, you've got to be confident in your product, and your product usually is you.
Yeah.
Okay, you are the product.
That's a good
So
point.
what you're selling is a consequence of you, because you believe in it.
Yeah.
Then because you believe in it, it becomes you.
Yeah.
And you honestly sell something that you can go to sleep at night thinking, I've done someone a service.
Yes. Tell us a bit more about that, because I think there is something important there in terms of selling something you really believe in, or facilitating someone to be better off rather than getting a certain number on the page or making a certain number of sales.
Look, I've got to be honest, I live by ethics. I need to sleep at night. I am a tense kind of guy, right? Or intense, I should say. And so I can come across loud because I have a lot of enthusiasm. I have a lot of enthusiasm for a reason. Sometimes people insult me by saying I have ADHD. I do not have ADHD. I have a high concentration level, but I'm very enthusiastic.
Yeah.
And so I believe in what I sell, because in the end of the day, ethically, I can say that I've done the right thing. But it goes a bit more beyond that. That person will live with that product, hopefully not just for 5 years, because a lot of companies sell on a 5 to 7 year turnover. I'm hoping that they live with that product for 20 years and always say, Moussa sold me the right product and I love it, and look how good it is today after 20 years. That is really the best thing for me. It's not about trying to sell high volume, right? Long as you're making money and you have the respect from other people, that you'll no longer have to use the TV, radio, the pamphlets, the letterbox drops to mark yourself, because you are marketing yourself just by being you and being honest, right? So there's a lot of things that fall into play. You will save a lot more money by telling the truth.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I think like people talk about, brand loyalty and customer loyalty and so on, but actually there's a lot to be said for actually building a relationship with the person, which then they're loyal to you. And in a sense, they come back for the product or the service because of that relationship. I
had a thing in Batemans Bay where if I sold an awning, now an awning is an external product and it gets rained on. Right. Okay, and so mold and mildew and everything else can grow, moss can grow on it, and it's quite bad, right? And so that product can look bad after only probably 2 or 3 years, depending on the circumstances, if there's a tree littering on it and all this kind of thing, right? If you're in a dusty area, dry area, and then when it rains, you've got the dust on the awning, which becomes the food for all the fungi and the bacteria, and it grows and it becomes disgusting. Yeah. So I would send a letter out every single year on its anniversary, as a reminder to wash your product and to coat it with a product that protected it from mold and mildew every single year. That's great. And what's interesting, we left Batemans Bay after 10 years, and my first customer who bought awnings from me, it was on Beach Road in Batehaven, and I would drive past, it was a striped grey and white sort of striped retractable pivot arm awning, and it still looked, from a distance, it still looked brand new. That's awesome. That guy would tell me he was from, I can't remember which country town, he was from another town, and that was his holiday home. And he would come and visit me now and then say, Moussa, those ones still look fantastic. Thanks for the reminders. That's awesome. So they don't have to remind themselves, I want to remind them every year. So I kept me in the front of their mind as well for other products as well. Yeah. It worked. It's good marketing. So that's an interesting thing, that actually you're helping them, but at the same time you're keeping yourself and your products at the front of mind. Correct. Yeah. Okay. And it works really well. Yeah. So look, in marketing, you can do it, in a very expensive way. Yeah. I did it in a very inexpensive way. Yeah. In a country town, you don't have a lot of money to work with. Yeah. And what's unfortunate, we had to sell that business after 6 years. Oh, gee. Why? Because I damaged my shoulder. Oh, no. I tore it because I did all my own installations, and the rotary cuff had spurring, and it kept tearing the tendon. So I sold the business 5 months later. Yeah. And I went through a very bad period, actually. Yeah. But good things came after that. Yeah. Yeah. So I sold that business not because I wanted to, but because I had to. Okay. So I guess in terms of after the 3 years you mentioned, what is it you then need to manage from a financial point of view? Like, what do you need to keep an eye on? Obviously, cash flow is one of them, but is there anything else? As you want to grow your business, everyone wants to grow their business and get market share, right? You start investing more money. Yeah. So I went and bought another property in another town called Maruya, and it was an industrial property. And I was thinking of maybe opening up a manufacturing, as I used to do with Hunter Douglas. My last job in Hunter Douglas, I had 4 positions, and my last position was training and managing my customers on manufacturing blinds and awnings.
Okay.
And I was thinking maybe I should do the same.
Okay.
And I bought it, but there wasn't enough capital for me to do this.
Interesting.
And so I took out a loan, and paying that loan off
Yeah.
for a property I was never going to use.
Right.
And unfortunately, I sold it years later at a loss because of the global financial crisis and everything, all the property prices dropped.
So if you were to go back and talk to the younger you, what would you say before making that investment?
Well, in that particular one, don't do it.
Yeah, but why?
I was too eager. I wanted market share when I didn't need it. Okay.
Yeah.
So sometimes in business you can get a little too greedy, and we all experience that, right?
Yeah,
and you got to be careful not to. You got to be just ask yourself: am I reasonably happy with what I've got? Can I grow it in a certain way without investing too much money?
Yeah.
But saying that, if you are going to invest money, and there's nothing wrong with that, make sure you're backed up somehow.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, and make sure you're financially backed up. I was backed up when I started my business. I was backed up financially for myself.
Yeah.
I had a couple of loans that I could draw on if I needed.
Yeah.
And it just turned out really well. I built another house in Batemans Bay. So I've built 4 houses, and the first one was in Seven Hills. Okay. And then I built my first house in Batemans Bay. And eventually I was going to build one after I sold the business, after I damaged my shoulder. Yeah. And so you have to make sure that you're financial, and your payday can be 6 months or a year later, and even up to 3 years later.
That's right. So although you may not want to take out debt, it's good to have a debt facility so that you can use it if you need to. Yeah. Okay.
Because there will be some down periods. It's not always going to be rosy, and sometimes you're going to need an income. So you sometimes need to draw on that. You're going to have the highs and lows.
You've got to smooth it out somehow.
Yeah. And so having a redraw facility is really good. So not a credit card.
No.
Okay, high interest. I'm talking about a redraw of, a fairly good, a good rate, a good business rate, a low business rate.
Yeah, I think a good sign of things going badly is when you're using your credit card for business.
Your personal credit card.
Yeah, if you're using your personal credit card for business.
Yeah. With my business, I had a card, but in actual fact, that card was connected to the income of the business. Okay. And so it was not a credit card, even though I could have used it that way, but it was more a
debit card.
It's like a debit card, a debit card.
Great. So I suppose in terms of the various businesses you've had, like some of those principles you learned early on are very applicable, like in the modern age. So you send an email instead of a letter about the warnings, for example.
Yep, correct.
Are there any other things that you sort of see in the internet age that are still very applicable?
Yeah, look, you still need to be in people's faces. Yeah. Okay. So now, forgetting about letterbox drops are still okay, I think. Yeah. Yellow pages were a big thing when I was in business, and they cost a fortune. Yeah. Thank God, and I say thank God they're no longer around, because they were just a waste of time. Yeah. They hardly gave me business.
Is that right?
Mm. So, building a big website and trying to get all traffic to the website, I think that's also useless. Okay. Personally.
Interesting.
It's nice to have a website for another reason. Okay. So years later, I've had 3 businesses. So the first one was Moussa's Minor Maintenance. Second one was Quality Window Coverings in Batemans Bay. And the third one is Quantum Home Improvements. Now, Quantum Home Improvements did not start off as a YouTube channel. Right. It started off as a bathroom renovations business. Or actually, even before that, I was doing carpentry. I was upskilling.
Oh, wow.
So I had a minor maintenance license. It was Moussa's Minor Maintenance. I went to carpentry, and then I did the certificate 4 in building. So yes, I overcame my literacy problems at the age of around about 33, right? Which was like a breath of fresh air for me. My life changed. So I started business at the age of 35.
Wow, that's amazing.
So, and that's why I was ready for it. Everything fell into place. Yeah. Everything fell into place. Financially, my wife was happy to do it. It put a lot of stress on a marriage. I need to say that very clearly. If you're going in as a partnership with your wife, it will put a lot of stress on the marriage, especially financially. You need to be backed up financially. I think a lot of marriages fail because of that. So you need to be clear on this. You shouldn't start a business unless you're financial, and both of you agree 100% what you're going to do. Yeah. So
you were saying that you need a website. What's the reason for having
yes. Bathroom renovations business of Quantum Home Improvements. So what I did, I employed a company called One Flare, and they were fantastic for me. And so people would look up services, and I would pay, I think it was $50 a month, and I'd only get 3 leads a month. Right. So if you are not very good in the home, explaining things to people, selling, your 3 leads will go on very quickly, and that's a waste of $50. Yeah. But can I tell you, I was converting 2 out of 3.
Wow, so that's awesome.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Even more than that, right? And what happened after a while, those customers were telling other customers, and so the business grew pretty good. But then I made a bad decision in business, but that business took off, and I would have my website as a leader. So they'd go into my website and think, this is a great business. It looks fantastic.
Yep.
So it was actually to confirm everything I told them in the home.
Okay.
Not to bring leads in, but to confirm and to quantify, qualify who I am, what I am.
So it's more authority than lead driving.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
And it worked beautifully for me. Now, other companies have different reasons to have a website. Okay, so I would still have a website these days, but being a YouTuber and converting Quantum Home Improvements into a YouTube channel, the YouTube itself is kind of like for me, a website.
Yeah.
And it works really well. So I don't need a website because of that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So, but can I explain to you why
please do.
I changed my business?
Yeah.
Okay, so I had a problem with my right foot called plantar fasciitis, quite common, right? I used to do a lot of running, but I was standing up all day in my business and it was hurting my foot. And the doctor said I need to get off it for 3 months. And I said to him, he needs to stop being a doctor for 3 months. How do you do that?
Yeah, exactly.
In your own business, right?
You can't.
So, and it's funny, at that time, someone approached me to start a business for them.
Right.
In the blinds and awnings industry.
Interesting.
For New South Wales. They had no New South Wales branch. I took it on, closed down my business, which was a really good business. Didn't close the name down, just the business. And I started working in this warehouse, and within 2 weeks of starting, they dropped the bombshell saying that they can't afford to have anyone in the warehouse. I'll need to do the warehousing and also running the business. Okay. And so they took advantage of me, unfortunately, and unfortunately some companies will do that. You've got to be careful of that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I put my resignation in almost a year later. It was just short of 1 year.
Okay.
And unfortunately, just before they found someone and they came to learn what I do, my disc ruptured. I carried too many heavy products.
Gee.
I went my whole life without having a history of back problem, and then now 3 weeks later I'm in hospital having a decompression. I became paralysed. My left foot was paralysed. Wow. So I've gone from plantar fasciitis to crippled.
That's terrible.
And they did a decompression, but I'm left with a residual nerve damage called cauda equina syndrome, which basically means in Latin, horse's tail. But yeah, I found myself for 3 years, unfortunately, trying to rediscover myself. And I actually felt like I was ready to lie down in a coffin. It was actually a very ugly time.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Now, I kept positive, but it felt ugly.
Yeah.
Okay, and so then I decided after watching a bit of YouTubing that I think this might be something I can do. And because I had a training background, I did a certificate 3 in workplace training. Okay. And so I used to train my customers on sales and also on manufacturing. So I had a lot to offer, and I thought I'm going to YouTube this. And so Quantum Home Improvements was now going to become a YouTube channel.
Fantastic. Yeah. Moussa, thank you very much for your time today, and I encourage everyone to check out Quantum Home Improvements.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful of you to share your wisdom with us, and thank you so much for those lessons that you showed.
Dominic, it's fantastic you asking me to be on video with you. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks very much, and I loved your ginger beer.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that video. Please check out my website, dominicmclaughlin.com, and check out my free course on businessleaderslab.com.